welcome back to DivaDollFlawless. So today's video is just going to be a really quick review and my thoughts on the Beauty Blender Micro.Mini. So the purpose of me initially even buying the Beauty Blender Micro.Mini was because, one, I just thought it was super cute and adorable, and an adorable version of the original Beauty Blender. However, I also thought that it would be really good for applying my concealer, and the price point was, I believe, like $15.95 for two Beauty Blender Micro.Minis, okay? Now, the color of them are like a lime neon green, and the size of the original Beauty Blender and the Beauty Blender Micro.Mini is definitely a significant difference. And I'll be sure to include some close-ups for you guys so that you can see the difference in size. Now, as per the original Beauty Blender, the Beauty Blender Micro.Minis do swell up a bit when you initially wet them. So what you'll see is that there's a size difference in even these. And you can clearly tell which one is being used and which one has not been used between the two of my sponges. So there is a difference in the size once this does get wet. And I think that they're a good tool to have in your kit or for your own personal use. I think that it's a cool thing to have. I don't think it's a necessity. I will say that much, because to be perfectly honest, everything that I can do with the Beauty Blender Micro.Minis, I can actually do with the original Beauty Blender because of the little pointed tip at the top of it, okay? I've never really had an issue with applying my concealer, but I will say this much. Once you get the Beauty Blender Micro.Mini, then you'll be able to really get into those creases and crevices of the face. So is it a necessity? No. Is it one of those things that once you have it, you'll find that it's a little more convenient? Definitely. At least that was my experience with this, okay? I purchased mine from Sephora, and I will probably repurchase it again. I definitely need to go and replace my original Beauty Blender. I wanted to really just save it for the video. Now, when you get it, it does come in a little plastic packaging, and it just says the original Beauty Blender Micro.Mini on it. And it pretty much is like the same packaging as the original Beauty Blender. Now, as far as cleaning it, I do the same thing that I do with the original Beauty Blender, which is use a antibacterial soap. I like to use the Dr. Bronner's peppermint soap. Anything that you would use to clean your brushes, your makeup brushes, is what I would suggest using with the Beauty Blender or the original Beauty Blender Micro.Minis. The price point to me, I think, is reasonable. I wouldn't pay more for either product, the Beauty Blender or the Micro.Mini Beauty Blenders. I will say that much. Some people think that's a little bit too high to pay for sponges, and some people think it's a good price point. I just think that it's an okay price point, but I would not pay more. Those are my thoughts on that. If you're like myself and you happen to wear extensions from time to time, nail extensions, when I wear my stiletto nails, which are the super pointed tip nails, I have ripped my sponges, which is an expensive habit to have. So just be mindful that you're not having your nails digging into the sponge at any point in time, especially when you're washing it. That's when I tend to have the issue, because if I'm not paying attention, if I'm not being really mindful of it and not using the pads of my fingers, then I will dig into the sponge when I go to wring it out, and then it will rip my sponge. So that's one thing that I would give a suggestion. Make sure at all times you're using the pads of your fingers, and I would suggest cleaning this out on a daily basis, just because you want to make sure that you're not harboring any bacteria of any sort, because it is a sponge. When I use my sponge, I do tend to use it wet, and that's just simply by using some Fix Plus, some Witch Hazel, whatever liquid I have at the time sitting on my vanity. Then, or you can always go to your sink and wet it prior to using it. Make sure it's damp, not necessarily dripping wet, but just like a nice dampness to it so that it can help blend in your products. As with any sponge, I would suggest applying the product to your face first and then blending out with the sponge, because the sponge, excuse me, I said the sponge will soak up more product. So that's one tip that I would give. If you're like me and you tend to have that habit of putting a product on the back of your hand or putting it on like a metal dish or some sort like that, just remember and be mindful that the product will probably, the sponge will possibly soak up more of your product. So to make sure you don't do that, just apply it directly to your face. And please make sure that you're at all times having clean, sanitized hands. I can't really think of anything else. I gave you the price point. The only cons of it, I would say, would be maybe the price point. And what else? Yeah, I can't really think of any cons because it's actually a product that I rather enjoy. Again, like I said, I don't think it's one of those things you have to have. I don't believe you need to have the original Beauty Blender and the Micro.Minis. I just don't think that it's a necessity. But once I had it, I found that it was a little more convenient for me, just so that I can really get that concealer up under the eyes. So that's it. If you guys have any questions or comments, please be sure to post them below. If you're wondering about my makeup, I will have a face of the day video posted, and I'll also have my face and everything everything will be listed in the description bar. As always, and until next time, have a gorgeous day. Doll Smooches. Mwah. Bye.